goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creators, where we sit down often with a special guest and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so that you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. And who are we? Well, I'm Simon, and this is not cancel culture, it's accountability. Together we are Cinemate Films, two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking shop with others in the industry. This episode is, of course, sponsored by With Jack, but we'll get onto that a little bit later in the show. Greg, who are we welcoming on to today's episode?
We are talking to Ian Weldon today. Hello, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I know we had some technical difficulties at the start, but everything's all started and we're good to go. So,
okay.
Are you? We didn't ask this before we hit record, but have you got yourself a drink or a beverage or?
I have a glass of water. I'm fine. Yes, thank you.
And you said
I've had my quarter of coffee this morning. It's fine.
Fair enough.
And you said before we started that there's snow out the window. Where are you based?
I am halfway between Newcastle and Durham, a small village called Chesley Street.
Chesley Street. Oh.
Well, I've recently moved back here, and it's a little bizarre because I grew up around here until I was. From the age of 3 till about 15, 16, and then spent kind of my early 20s kicking around here and then moved away, and now I'm back. So it's quite bizarre. But it's snowing and everything looks nice. So
yeah. Is it quite a small town that you're at?
Smallish town. It's an old market town.
All right, okay. I'm just wondering, did you have the same teenage rebellion as I did? I was like, fuck this little town. When I'm heading to the big city, I'm going to make a name for myself. Did you do that kind of thing?
Sort of. Well, I got out when I was like 16. I joined the army straight from school.
Shit.
Way back in 1990.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So I'm getting on a bit. But yeah, that came back and there wasn't really much going on. So I moved around quite a bit and now I'm back for I don't know how long. But I don't think it'll be too long. I'll be out of here again as soon as I can.
You make it sound like a terrible place to be.
It's not a terrible place to be. It's all right. It's nice. It's not the city. I mean, I lived in Newcastle for I've been back here about a year, but previous to that, I lived in Newcastle for 7 years. And when you have a lot going on in places, it sort of inspires you a little bit.
Yeah.
And to be back somewhere where there isn't a great deal going on, it's hard to really. I don't know. I kind of find it hard to get out, and I know there's not much. There's nothing to do really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of looking forward to moving again. Let's just put it that way.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So obviously, before every show, I do my research into our guests and make sure that I know everything about them. Obviously, I had known about your work for quite some time. However, I didn't realize that you were a fellow podcaster. Your podcast is Outer Focus.
Yeah.
So how's podcast been for you?
Well, podcast was Out of Focus. I think.
Yeah.
It ran for like 2 years, from about 2018 to 2020, and then I think when the pandemic came along, we did 60 episodes as well, 60 plus episodes, and had quite a wide variety of different types of photographers. And although I'm more known for shooting weddings, I have an interest. My interest really lies with photography itself and photography history. I was a lecturer on photography history at Sunderland University too. So when I stopped doing that, I wanted to, I think, bring photography history to people in a way that wasn't academic, or it wasn't stuffy, or it wasn't, I don't know. People seem to be scared by the phrase photography history.
Yeah.
But really, it's just having an interest in the thing that you do. Like I'm a photographer, so to understand a little bit of photography history helped me to understand where I was placed in photography and what it is that I was doing. So to be able to bring that across in a non-stuffy way or a non-academic way, that was the original premise of the podcast. And I think after 2 years and having a lot of conversations with photographers, and it was probably more to understand the philosophy of the photographer, because I understood more about photography by understanding the motivations of photographers than I did by looking at the pictures. Yeah. And the pictures and I feel the same way that mine are just a consequence of my ideas. That's not really what I'm going for. It's not a predetermined style or a predetermined way of shooting. It's just my response to the subject, given my understanding of photography. So we ran that about 2 years in the hope that it would inspire wedding photographers who I speak to a lot of wedding photographers who started off with an interest in photography. And they sort of get swept away by, oh, well, I can earn some money and I can do this, I can shoot weddings. And then they get sucked into the whole kind of workshop gear kind of thing that they never seem to get out of, and they never really understand what it is that they want to do and who they are as a photographer, because they're just copying whatever's popular to make money. And really, I mean, we all need to keep a roof over our heads and make money. So the idea was to introduce some photography history and help people to think about what photography is and where it came from and how it developed both technologically and ideologically. And I think that really gives us a perspective of what it is that we should be doing and how we should approach photography itself, or filmmaking, or whatever. You know? But then when the pandemic came around, I was just having more and more depressing conversations with photographers who were stuck in the house and doing nothing. So it sort of tailed off around then and never really got back on track. I tried a couple of times, but I don't know. It's a funny thing. I think it may be something that's done now.
Okay. I mean,
that's the short explanation.
Well, the reason I wanted to ask, because it looked like to me your last episode was in June. Right. I'm thinking, oh, maybe he just had a really busy season. I don't know. Or maybe the man's broken. Who knows?
Well, there's an element of both. Really.
Shit.
I did try. What I was going to do was run short seasons, like 6 episodes.
Okay.
But then other commitments get in the way. Trying to pin people down. The recording, like you guys know, it's hard work, man. It's like it can be nearly a full-time job, and especially when there's just me. It's not just the recording; it's the editing, it's the conversations beforehand, it's the emails, it's the putting it together, it's then putting it out on the social media, your podcast platforms. It's not an easy task, man.
No, it's not. I mean,
and I think really it just got to the point for me where, is it really worth me putting all this time into this when I don't feel like I'm getting much back from it at the moment? So
I get it. I get that.
From your time doing it, do you have a favorite conversation? Like, is there one episode in particular that stands out to you?
Do you know what? There's loads, really. All of them have their own sort of revelations, if you want to call it, but all of them have their own parts. I don't really think after a while, I stopped looking at a photographer from photography history, because the conversations that I was having with photographers now, I feel, were as important as laying the groundwork for photography history. And there's really only so much you can cover in that sense. You have to lay down the foundations, and people then have to find their own way and do their own thing. But no, I think once they started going, after 10 episodes, they just became better conversationally, and it was very much like this. It was more just a conversation. It was more just chatting with people and figuring out their kind of motivations and why they shoot how they shoot and how they got into photography and all of the stuff that I think is important.
Yeah. Is your podcast still up for people to listen to?
Yes, people can still listen to it. It is available on the Out of Focus website. There's a whole load of, all of the episodes are up on Patreon. I was starting to re-upload everything to Spotify, but then just got bored with it and couldn't be bothered.
That'll be, yes, I can see what I've done. I've gone to Spotify and been like, oh, his last post was in June. Yeah, I can see there's only a few episodes on Spotify.
Yeah.
Sorry, Spotify listeners, but
I did. I just kind of got bored with it. I'm like, I'm done with it, man. Why am I still trying to flog this dead horse? You know.
Oh God! I hope this podcast isn't going to be described as a dead horse one day.
One day.
But I believe those 60 odd recordings, I think it's a good resource for photographers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with the work that we did on that. But you know, things come to a natural end, and when you're not getting anything from it, I don't really see any point in keep trying to push ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one question I've actually not been asking people is to describe who they are as a person and as a creative individual, what they do in their own words. Because I used to give everyone an introduction. It used to be quite spiely, and I just decided I don't want to put words in people's mouths. So for people, you know, the handful of people who probably haven't heard of you, you want to tell them who you are and what you do?
Well, how long have we got?
As long as you want.
As long as you want.
In a nutshell, I am a photographer. Well, I'm even past the point of even considering myself a photographer because I don't even like all the label that comes with it, or I don't want to refer to myself as documentary photographer or a wedding photographer. Or the more that I've tried over the years to find a label for what it is that I do, the less it has made sense.
Yeah.
So if you want to call me a photographer, then fair play. And I'm from the north of England. I predominantly photograph weddings. But I also work on long-term documentary projects, commercial assignments, and really, as far as the, I suppose, paid work is concerned, I'm really more interested in social situations, and that filters into my personal projects as well, around working men's clubs and bodybuilding, and I am just, I don't know, man, like, it's just, I don't really have a subject.
Yeah.
The subject is my response to the subject rather than the subject itself.
Uh-huh.
So in that vein, I just pick up anything that I find interesting and go and explore it more. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And is that how you would describe how you see things? It's like an exploration?
That is... my process, how I see things, comes from everything that that comes from your life. That comes from everything you've experienced and everything that's influenced you and everything you've been inspired by. And how I see things is unique to me, as should any photographer, artist exploring the world and trying to express themselves in some way.
Uh-huh.
You know? It's a reflection. My photographs, not at the beginning, through practice, I was able to see myself in the work that I was creating, and that's an aspect that I pursued rather than pursuing something that I saw in somebody else's photographs. I decided, it became apparent that the only way to do it in good conscience for myself was to explore what I found in my photographs. And then that was not just an exploration of myself and my understanding of the world around me. It helped me to see things in different ways. It helped me to be more compassionate. It helped me to understand the world around me. And again, which in turn helped me to understand myself. So it's probably therapy more than anything else.
Yeah. With your images, once you've, released an image, once you've made it, is there a part of it that's like, is there any commentary with it? Like, are you trying to say something when you release an image, or is that just too deep, or is it just like,
no, not at all.
I like this moment.
That's not too deep at all. I mean, I'm not. People can make their own minds up about what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not down to me to tell people what they should think and how they should react. All I'm really doing is I'm presenting something that's representative of who I am and how I see the world.
Yeah.
And people can see the good in it. People can see the bad in it. People can think it's good. People can think it's bad. And that's once it's out there, it's no real concern of mine.
Yeah.
But we all just hope that people like it and people will hire you to do what it is that you do.
Yeah.
In that sense, I mean, there is the age-old argument: is it art or is it commerce? And we have to. I mean, we've got to keep a roof over our heads, so we have to compromise in some way, or we have to, we have to be aware. It's a fine line, For me, it is. Some people are purely commerce. Yeah. And this is it. This is what I do, and I will repeat this over and over again because it makes money.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've come at it from a different perspective. I never wanted to run a wedding photography business. I never wanted to run a business at all.
Yeah,
it's more, weddings itself is more of a long-term project to me. It's just very fortunate that I've been paid to do that.
Yeah. Well, talking about other people's opinions in Twitter, and I'm sure people have asked you this, so I apologize if this is like retreading stuff that I'm sure you know what's coming. But in 2019, you were awarded the solo exposition. I keep saying exposition. That's the one. Thank you. at the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol.
Indeed, I was.
And it turned out to be the first of a wedding photographer's work to be in a fine art gallery in the UK, and I find that quite an extraordinary achievement. How did that all come about?
So if I go back to when I didn't come to photography until I was like 29 years old.
Okay.
I was somewhat interested in photography. It was around when I was younger. I had plenty of point and shoot cameras, and but life gets in the way, and you have to work and you have to do other things. And when I had the opportunity to do something different, photography was a thing. So I went to college, and while you're at college, you're shown photographers. At the time, photography was taking pictures, art was painting, music was playing an instrument. I didn't realize that none of those things are art. It's the artist itself that makes it so. So it's I didn't realize that they were all one and the same thing, and it's the idea that matters.
Yeah.
So when I was shown work by Bruce Gilden and Mary Ellen Mark and Larry Fink, who's just passed away, very sadly, and Martin Parr, that to me wasn't photography. It was like, what is it? It didn't really make any sense to me because there was clear use of flash, and it was messy, and it didn't seem to be composed to the rule of thirds or whatever bullshit that I was told in photography school or what I'd read on the internet or seen on YouTube. And it didn't make any sense to me. Photography was more of a commercial endeavor. So it was, I don't know, like landscape or architecture or product photography or automotive, like all of those things, and it wasn't until a long time I started to get interested in photography history because I had to make a change in the work that I was doing, because I was unfulfilled and it just became another job. And once I shifted my kind of music nerdiness over to photography, I started to read about photographers and understand where photography came from. And photographers like Martin Parr and Mary and these documentary photographers, it all really started to make sense because they were photographing the world the way that they saw it, not in the way that the industry expected it to be done. So there was a bit of a change in my mindset, and understanding those photographers, it really changed my perspective on the world around me and fundamentally changed me as a human being. For the better, I hope. So I am working away with my idea of what photography is, and I'm applying that to weddings. And I was doing that for nearly 15 years, and mostly felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall. because it wasn't really accepted by the wedding photography industry, because that's not how you photograph a wedding. And it wasn't accepted by the documentary photography community, because it was weddings.
Yeah.
So I was in this bit of a no man's land, and bizarrely enough, Martin ended up speaking at Bodaf in Barcelona. And he didn't realize that it was mostly wedding photographers, but as he was showing his work, a few people had mentioned, have you seen Ian Weldon's work?
Right.
The next morning, I get an email from Martin Parr.
Nice.
Which, like, what the shit, man? Like, what's all that about? I kind of thought it was a joke. I had to read it 3 times, you know?
Yeah.
So being all shy and coy about it, I had to leave it a little bit, and I don't want to just jump in. So we had a couple of emails backwards and forwards. He had to be in Newcastle to oversee an install of a Chris Killip exhibition, and he sent me an email saying he was going to be there. I ended up picking him up at the airport. Had a nice long conversation with Martin, and we went for dinner in the evening, and he said that he would like to offer me a show at the Martin Parr Foundation. So a photographer that I had so much respect for, and his, not just, it's the work ethic, man, and his philosophy around what it is that he's doing. It's not just the pictures. For him to contact me so all those years later, after he made such an impact on my life, to say, first of all, to say that he liked the work, second, to give me a solo exhibition at the Martin Parr Foundation, and then co-publish and write the foreword to the book. It was like, yeah, man, this is quite surreal.
Yeah.
But that's how it happened. But that's how it happened, with the backstory of how important it was to me, really.
Yeah. I mean, ever since you said you'd be able to come on the podcast, I've actually been really excited, because I feel, and I definitely have had others on the podcast who see the wedding industry or see wedding photography in a very similar way, and it's kind of like that view that kind of goes against traditional wedding photography, you know. And I think I always appreciate when a creative comes into essentially a box that people like. It's weddings, and another creative comes into a box and pushes the lid up, or just makes it a little bit more than what it was. I think that's very exciting. So yes, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, see, you're talking about like what makes the photographs art is how you sort of see the world and capturing that. How important do you think like the technical proficiency is? Like, do you think you have to actually know all the rules to be able to create art through your photos, or can somebody who's a newbie come in and sort of create it without any knowledge? Yeah,
I mean, as far as the technical aspect is concerned, I used to be a huge proponent of understanding how a camera works. The camera itself as a tool hasn't changed since the inception of photography. We've just added more and more automation and more electronics and more and more. It's essentially a box with a hole in it. So the camera itself isn't important. It's the idea that's important. And the camera is just a tool to express that. But as far as the technical aspect, like the camera has a good brain, man. Like, lean on it, use it. And that frees you up to do whatever you want. Like, I'll lean on the camera, but if the camera doesn't work the way you want it, you have to know how to manipulate that machine to do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, technically, you have to understand innately how that machine works. Like any other artist, every tool that they use, they know exactly how it works. They know exactly how to use it, and they know exactly how to manipulate it. And you can't manipulate the machine unless you understand it. But as far as shooting wise, like, man, I think I shoot it's pretty much everything automatic these days.
Oh, really?
You know, like, yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, shutter priority. That's what I use. It's
Right.
the S, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. Like, really, I am. The least important part of what I do for me is the camera itself, and what you know, it's an essential part, but for me, it's not important. I pretty much shoot everything. 99% of everything I shoot, whether it be weddings, commercial work, like my own personal projects, is with a little Fuji X100.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know, and that's in shutter priority and with a flash gun on top in TTL. You know? So you have to, it takes a long time to be able to simplify it. So, but I do believe that you have to understand how it works. But the most important part of photography is the idea. And you have to have if you don't have an idea, then you're not really doing anything other than copying or doing what the market tells you should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Is it not the X100 that's like in high demand right now? Everybody in the dog seems to want one. You should just sell it and get something else. Cash in.
Luckily, I bought that. It's the latest one as well. But I've been using the X series cameras for about since the first X Pro 1, 9 years, something like that. 8 years, 9 years, and that was a dreadful camera. But then the X Pro 2 came along, and then the X100, and I've had like the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and now I have the fifth one. You know, and I just use them until they break, and then get a new one.
Yeah.
But yes, I think they are in high demand.
Wait, you've got one, don't you?
No, I used to have an XT3.
Oh, right. Okay.
Got rid of it recently.
Since we're on the boring conversations of tech, do you have anything in your kit bag that's kind of unusual or unique to you?
I would say for a wedding photographer or a commercial photographer, the X100 is probably quite a unique little machine. I don't have any zoom lenses. No, do you know what? No. No. I'm sure anybody who photographs with a Fuji camera knows, then you're probably carrying more battery. Batteries are taking up more space in your bag than anything else.
All right. Fair enough. You know, since you were talking about lenses, what's your, like, what focal length would you say you see the world in? Like, if you were to really understand a lens.
Yeah, well, when we start, we get everything that we're told that we need.
Yeah.
Like, I was running around with two Canon 5Ds, like one with a 2470 on, one with a 7200. And then over time, I wasn't using the 7200. And over time, again, I realized that I was round about the 35 to 50 millimeter with the 7200. I was like, why am I carrying all this weight? Yeah. Then I had a 50 millimeter lens for a while. And I kind of found it a little bit too tight for what it is that I wanted. Yeah. So I settled on a 35 millimeter, and that's pretty much what I used until I changed. I went a little bit wider with the first Fuji, which was 28, and now I'm back to about 35, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, it looks how I want it to look. And that little Fuji X100 has got a fixed 35 millimeter lens. And that's, it's as easy as that.
Yeah.
I like a 35. That's my go-to lens. I'm a big fan of that. I used to be like you. I used to have the 70. No, well, we did have the 7200, but I was always the 2470. And it just gave me too much choice. I was like thinking,
right.
I was too busy thinking about what focal length I should be at instead of like I was just missing moments from. Yeah, I was just man.
I found out. I just didn't know. I found using a zoom lens, I don't know where to be.
Yes, and every decision is the wrong decision. That's what I found as well. I'm like, I should have shot that 24 or terrible.
And with the little Fuji, I know where I have to be to get the shot that I want. Yeah, I can't just stand on the other side of the room and zoom in. I have to be there.
Yeah,
and I think that using these, I suppose, slightly wider focal lengths, and only having one option, it helps me to get closer, and it helps me to get closer not just kind of physically, but it's also an emotional closeness as well.
Yeah.
Because people don't see you as the professional photographer. They don't see the big white lens. They just see a small compact camera, and I'm often asked what my real job is, and am I just starting out, and all that kind of stuff. And there's always a guest at a wedding that's got like 10 grand's worth of kit, you know.
Yeah,
like,
that's where my mind went when you were like, oh yeah, I'm always getting asked if this is my day job. It's always by that guy who has the big camera, the big lens, probably a flash. Oh my god, yeah.
Firing off 30 shots at a time, and you right beside you as well.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. But the way you describe yourself as not a wedding photographer is quite intriguing, and like, because you do shoot weddings and you get paid to do that. So people look at that and go, well, you're a wedding photographer, but you don't describe yourself as that. So what sets your approach apart, like, and makes you say that you are not a wedding photographer?
Well, I mean, I think that the meaning of that's changed over time. When I first started doing that, when I first started saying that I wasn't a wedding photographer, before it came my like fucking tagline or whatever it is, it was more kind of my response to what I was getting from the wedding photography industry. You know, it's like, you can't shoot like that. You can't do this. You can't chop heads off. You can't do like, it's just like, why? Like, there are no rules, man. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like, didn't really understand where that was coming from. Not being a part of the wedding photography industry, and not before that, and not really understanding what it was. I just wanted to distance myself a little bit from it. And in time, it's more about kind of my approach and who I am. And I think everybody has a perception of what a wedding photographer is. And as far as the general public are concerned, probably the only time they come in contact with a photographer is at a wedding. So it's the guy that's ordering everybody around. It's the guy that's shouting at people. It's the guy that's getting stressed out by people getting in the way with the mobile phones or whatever it is that they're doing. And it's the guy with the big cameras. And wedding photographers are wedding photography at its core is commercial photography. You know, and it's an easy access form of commercial photography. Anybody can get into it.
Yeah.
And wedding photographers, for the most part, are running a business. And they have to keep up with current trends, and they have to, you know, their aim is to please the client and to be able to repeat the same thing over and over again, to give the client what they want, because what the client sees on the website, that's what the client wants.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time, as far as technical aspect is concerned, knowing how to do all the fancy lighting and knowing how to create these fantasy shots and all these beautiful things. And I've never been interested in that. Everything from the business all the way through to pleasing other people, it's never been a thing for me. So in that sense, I'm not running a wedding photography business. I'm not really a wedding photographer. I'm a photographer that photographs weddings. Should you want me to do it for you?
Yeah. And is that why, so there's that kind of general consensus that, you know, when you have a website, that's the wedding website. That's your wedding work. Whereas if you go on your website, it's got everything, right? It's got your bodybuilding stuff and stuff. Like, has that ever been? Have you ever thought about that being an issue, or nah?
No,
because you're not a wedding photographer.
Weddings are no different to the personal projects, really. Weddings, I realized early on, I started shooting weddings just so I could make some money, really, to work on my own personal projects. I had these grand ideas of what it is that I wanted to do, and I realized quite quickly that I could just apply myself to the wedding and photograph it in the way that I wanted it, rather than do it the way that the industry expects. And obviously at that time there was I had a responsibility of the clients because they wanted certain things, but over time I just started showing more and more of the for want of a better phrase, the documentary style, because that's what everybody calls it. I started showing more of that and showing what was more representative of me and the way I saw things. And it just, I was going to say snowballed, but the snowball never really got that big, you know. If I was a wedding photographer, I would have been way more financially successful, but I would in no way have been to the places that I've been, seen the things that I've seen, experienced the things that I've done, and been able to shoot the things that I have done in the last 15 years, man. You know, and that's worth more than any money to me.
Yeah, you mentioned your clients there for doing weddings, and I do always like to ask this question to our guests: is who do you shoot for when you are hired to go for to a wedding? Do you shoot with your clients in mind, or do you shoot for yourself the images that you see and you want because that's what your clients have hired you to do?
Right. So I've found myself in a place where people hire me. Do you just come and do what you do for us?
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't want to make people look. There are silly moments, and there are odd pictures, and there are, I suppose, a bit. Yeah, but I have to be mindful that I'm not making them look bad.
Yeah.
But that's not something that I'd ever want to do anyway. But what's made me mindful of that is the way that other people perceive the photographs that I make, because it's not wedding photography. I'm doing it at weddings. So that's sort of in my mind. I want to give them... so the pictures that are on the website, most of them, they're the kind of, what would you call, hero shots.
Yeah.
It is a wedding that I'm shooting, and there are a lot of more wedding-y pictures. You know? But if people get the more extreme end of what it is that I'm doing, they're going to be super happy with the rest of it.
Yeah.
You know? I had a client once, she said to me, I want an ugly picture of everybody. You know? So
okay.
But I am shooting for me and for... It's my representation of their wedding. That's what I'm being hired for.
Yeah.
I'm not being hired to go and copycat something. I'm not being hired to do this or like that. Yeah. I'm only hired to do it the way that I do it. But that again comes with its own issues, because if we look at the pandemic, and I changed a lot during the pandemic as far as my outlook is concerned and what it is that I was trying to do, and really the motivations around what I was doing. And when I... post-pandemic, the weddings that I was picking up that got cancelled, they're kind of expecting what I was doing pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So that was difficult to try and give them that. And that's a hard thing to do when what it is, I'm photographing my response to the subject and a reflection of who I am. Yeah. And if that changes, then that was a very busy year, that year post-pandemic. That's probably one of the hardest years I've had.
Yeah.
Trying to kind of... I know what they want, and I know why they hired me, and I have to do that, but I also have to stay true to what it is that I'm doing. And that was a difficult year, man.
Yeah. How you mentioned that you changed during the pandemic, but what did that change look like in your work?
It may not be instantly recognizable to anybody viewing the work, but I mean, I've always had a long interest in abstract expressionist art. People like Vasily Kandinsky and Giacomo Balla, like Futurism, all of that kind of stuff. And I did see over the years elements of that creeping into my work as far as the structure of the photograph is concerned.
Yeah.
And not wanting to continually repeat myself or become sort of a caricature of what it is that I was doing and just making silly pictures. There was more of an element coming into it that was kind of abstract, more geometric in the way that those paintings are. And as I was kind of creeping into that as the pandemic was coming, but then we had a 2-year break. So my mindset kept churning away, or I kept moving forward with that idea. And as we come to the end of the pandemic, I'm more invested in the kind of visual geometric representation of the thing. As it also has to be a good photograph. It can't just be one thing.
Yeah.
You know? So the more comical version of my photographs started to become less important. Because previously, if a picture came up on my screen and it made me laugh. Like, that's a winner, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there are more elements that have been added to that. And that isn't just during the pandemic. That's something that you're continually changing and continually refining and continually changing, moving the goalposts on what a good photograph actually is.
Yeah. So I do want to go and ask that question of what is a good image. But before I do, you mentioned that balance of making somebody look bad at a wedding. And obviously you were asked to take ugly photos of people. How do you see making someone look bad in an image? Like, what are you trying to avoid there? Because things like when I go to a wedding, I do have that typical mindset of like, oh, I don't want to shoot anyone smoking.
Yeah.
Or
I shoot smokers all the time.
Yeah, well, I know, and I do really like those images, and it's made me think like, where are these ideas that I have coming from?
Right.
You know, and it's made me think recently that I really do want to try and get rid of these boundaries that I have.
Right.
So yeah.
So I mean, again, I think as far as this question and the next question, it's our own. It's all subjective, and it comes from our own personal experience and the relationships that I have with the people who hire me, my clients. It means that I can get away with maybe more, but I will only go as far as I'm prepared to go. So that's individual to everybody. If there's something, like you said, if there's something that you feel like you shouldn't be shooting, like why don't you want to shoot that? Why don't you want to put that in? And like, what is it about you that stops you doing that? And if you can reason the fact that you don't want to do it for a certain reason, then you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you can get past it and go, oh, well, that's just a silly notion that I have that I shouldn't, then do it. You know, and that's just a personal thing. And that also comes into what is and what isn't a good photograph. It's totally and utterly subjective. You know, a good photograph isn't something that's sharp in focus. Like, an out of focus picture of my dog is more important to me than an in focus picture of somebody's dead grandparent.
Yeah. Okay.
So what makes a good photograph depends on, you have to have a process and an understanding of what it is that you're doing for you to then find out what a good photograph is for you. And I think people are chasing what other people think is a good photograph when they should really be looking at their own and finding what they like about their own photographs and pursuing that aspect.
Yeah. What are you thinking about all these AI tools of people being so easily like, you could like look at this table and just like draw a mask around that mug and go replace with a dinosaur, and it just replaces it with a dinosaur. Like, what do you think that there is something being lost in the application of these tools? Do you think?
Well, there are always going to be new tools. People said when the iPhone came along that would destroy photography and photographers. People said when the Brownie came along that photography was dead as a craft and an art.
Yeah.
And that was in the 1900s, early 1900s.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So
you're right.
If things come easy to people, it's all, there's no real depth to it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think we really understand what AI can do as far as imaging is concerned. They're like the jury's completely open on that.
Yeah.
Because people have said that about everything. Like, Illustrator is for people who can't draw. Adobe Illustrator. Like, Cubase is for people who can't play instruments. Like, do you know, like all of this kind of AI is for people who can't. But you still have to think and manipulate the machine to be able to make these pictures. But I don't know. I don't really have any opinion on it, to be fair.
Okay.
Like,
it's just,
it is. It's just there, and whether it'll seep into it. In some sense, I'm already using AI.
Oh.
You know, with the camera, using automatic modes in the camera.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
okay.
I will auto adjust my pictures in Lightroom.
Yeah.
You know, before I then kind of tinker with them. So I'm already letting the machine do some of the work.
Yeah.
How much of that I will continue to? I don't know. Like.
Yeah, it's just because
all the artificial intelligent art in inverted commas that I've seen all looks a little bit. There's nothing there that grabs my attention because there's no real. It's not crafted by a person, and it doesn't have the. What's the word I'm looking for? The idiosyncrasies of a human being, and also it's a little bit stale and a bit clinical at the moment. But who knows? Who knows what will happen with that?
Yeah. I'm just because obviously there's. I always go back to our conversation with John Dolan, who had the book the Imperfect Perfection. Is that right? Did I get the name right? And
his second book on wedding photography.
Well, all of his images are just like there's stuff in the background and things, and I think I was speaking to him about like how probably a traditional wedding photographer would probably just like get rid of that wheelchair in the background or clean up this, and I'm just thinking, but those elements add a character to
the environment.
Yes, of course.
Those elements tell a story of the day in and of themselves.
Of course.
Yeah. I always think maybe there is something that does get lost, but
yeah,
I suppose it's all like you said, the intention behind using the tools.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, there are. I think, as somebody who is visual and you're creating a representation of the world around you, then we're already filtering out what we want out before we actually hit the shutter button.
Yeah, that's true.
So filtering it out afterwards, I don't know. And I don't know what photographs I've made that are good photographs until I see them afterwards. And that kind of comes... It's all about... I don't think it's important to understand how to make a good photograph.
Yeah.
It's more important to know what a good photograph is.
Yeah.
I would agree with that completely. Yeah.
Because we can apply ourselves to the situation and be free in the situation and make pictures, the things that we're drawn to, we can go and we can make pictures of that. But it's afterwards we look at it and go, all right, that's actually a good photograph of that. And those photographs can be made or destroyed by one little element in the background or one little thing poking into the frame or a look on a face or a gesture or something, Yeah. And that can kind of make or break the photograph. And we don't really know that unless we are looking at it in a commercial sense and we're setting everything up and we're making it also perfect and right. And then we know that we've got it.
Yeah.
That kind of seems a little bit boring to me. It's like,
yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the photos on your website are, for want of a better word, your hero images. And that's what we all do as photographers and filmmakers, put the stuff on our website that are our hero images, and it's what our clients hire us for. But I know that there'll be photographers listening to this going, his whole gallery can't look like that. It can't. So what does an Ian Weldon gallery that a client gets look like? Do you have group photos? Do you have some mantelpiece photos for Gran? Or is it more so
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, though, if somebody wants a photographer to spend 2 hours taking family group shots, then I'm not the guy to do that.
Yeah.
If they want 3 or 4 group shots, if they want a couple of bride and groom portraits, and my bride and groom portraits are, this is nice, stand there, look this way.
Yeah.
So, right, done. Get back to your guests.
Yeah.
If somebody wants the fantasy created with these beautiful portrait pictures and things like that, then and just pass them on to somebody else. I don't want to spend 2 hours ordering people around and taking pictures of them.
In fact, I do have a quote of yours. It says, I mean, as much as I love standing around for hours, lining people up, ordering them around, and taking photographs of every combination of family member and guest, I have more important things to be doing at a wedding. And quite frankly, so do you.
Absolutely.
I love that quote so much. So much. My thought was, when you mentioned so do you, who are you talking to? Are you talking to photographers, or are you talking to the people at... this is your wedding.
The couple, surely.
The bride and groom, it's your wedding. Go and enjoy the wedding and have a good day.
Yes, right. Okay, that's good.
You know, I've got more important things to be doing, making pictures of people having fun and enjoying the day, and you have more important things to be doing than standing around for 2 or 3 hours. You know, like,
Yeah.
so I mean, when people read that, if they still send me an email, then like, hey, they're in. You know, they get it, kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Would that be again? I've had so many conversations where the term ideal client has come up, and it's just ideal client. I don't know if I don't like it anymore. I can understand the sentiment of like connecting with the people that you connect with the most, but do you have like an ideal client? Like, is that?
I mean, well, I think that anybody, after the conversations that I have with people, if they go to my website and they send me an email and I have a conversation with them and they book me after the conversation, then that is my ideal client.
Yeah, the people who pay.
That's all that matters. If they're on board with what it is that I'm doing and they don't want me to compromise what it is that I'm doing and they see it and they want it, then that's my ideal client.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
if during the conversation they want things that I can't give them, then I'll just pass that on to somebody. I'd rather not shoot it than do them a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the way you said that, like doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
Well, talking about that, I'm going to whore myself out for a minute to the YouTube gods. If you have enjoyed this conversation, you can join us on YouTube at youtube.com/@perspective by Cinemate. And hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, and get notified and see our beautiful faces. Again, I was talking to someone today who was like, "Oh, I really enjoyed the podcast." Tony, I'm talking about you. And but he expressed how when he saw our faces, he thought my voice was Greg's voice, and Greg's voice was my voice. So, yeah, I don't know why, but everyone gets our voices mixed up. Greg, that's fun.
Strange.
Anyway. And you can also get us on Spotify and all the other podcast places. So please support the podcast because there's some fucking good conversations that we've been having with some really fucking good people, including Ian, who we're back to. Hello, Ian. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Oh God. You know, I do want to ask you what your first ever wedding was like, because we know what your work looks like now.
Yeah.
But I always like to get a sense of what the motivation for booking your first wedding in the first place.
Yeah.
And then what your work was then and how it's changed over the years. So.
Well, the motivation for shooting wedding, I did have requests. I had when I first started out, I just whitewashed a wall in a shed and had a couple of lights and was just doing white background portrait photography.
All right.
And I did that for years and never got any better because I was just buying more and more gear and not understanding anything about photography.
Okay.
So that was when I started becoming more interested in photography history and understanding what it was as a medium itself. And I would get requests for weddings. And I was like, I don't shoot weddings, like bottom rung photography jobs, man. That's not me. I am a portrait and fine art photographer. That's what I was. Like, I don't shoot weddings. But I'm not quite sure what a fine art photographer is either, still, to be fair. But that's what I was anyway. It sounded fancy at the time.
It definitely sounds fancy.
And I think, so after so many requests, and then understanding that I wanted to go and shoot my own personal projects, I had to fund that. And then I remember getting an email from somebody saying their photographer had let them down. This was like Wednesday or Thursday. And could I photograph their wedding on the Saturday? I was just like, right, well, I don't know, like, how much was I going to get? I think it was like £600 or something, the first one.
Yeah.
And
that's
I was like,
pretty
£600.
good.
It wasn't too bad at all. And at the time, I think I had to go and loan a camera off a friend of mine or a lens or something because I didn't have like the kit to do it. And the camera that I had was a bit rubbish. Or I perceived it as a bit rubbish because it wasn't a fancy new Canon 5D. So, yeah, I went and photographed that, and you could probably run that wedding back as a stop motion movie. thing. I took that many pictures
Yeah.
just to make sure that I didn't miss anything at all. And to be fair, the pictures were pretty dreadful. But not, I mean, the couple liked them. And really what it was probably better than what they were going to get from the other guy who let them down after I'd had a look at his website. And yeah, I don't know. I was just fumbled through it really, trying to capture everything. And I think that in doing so, in trying to capture everything, I came across photographs there that I didn't really make intentionally, but were indicative of the kind of thing that I'd seen in documentary photography and social documentary photography. So that kind of, so probably from the first wedding, there were a couple of pictures there. I was like, hang on a minute. Like, why am I trying to do all this when I can do it like this?
Yeah.
And then in time, I don't know, the shoe picture, the ring picture, the kiss at the altar, all of those became slightly less important to me to show people. It was like, we all know that stuff happens. Like, why do you need a picture of the ring, man? You've got it on your finger. You know?
Yeah.
Do you want me to spend 2 hours? Not 2 hours. Do you want me to spend half an hour putting a ring on tree branches and fucking Bibles and like whatever you want me to do with it to create these ring pictures when you're wearing it? You know, like all the, you know. So they became less important, and it became more important to kind of photograph what was going on, like around all of that, and sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BTS photography at weddings.
You say you sort of noticed straight away from that first wedding, like what images connected with you, and then that over time those ring shots disappeared.
Yes.
Why did it take time? Was that just your inner battle with, but the kind of, I need to capture these, and you had to get the confidence to drop them?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was what was expected from. So not knowing anything really about wedding photography, you start researching and looking at websites and looking at photographers who shoot that. It's kind of like, all right, well, they're all doing this if I want to earn money. And that's how people get sucked into it.
Yeah.
But I think that fortunately, I had done quite a bit of study and started to figure out what it is that I liked with photography. And also I like the snapshot because they're just so random. There are elements in there that you could never make up. You could never create that photograph. It is just a snapshot of a time. And they're the pictures that I still like. But they're more sophisticated snapshots now.
Yeah.
With an understanding of what a good photograph is to me. So there was a little bit of a struggle. And to be fair, man, like, even going up to 2019, in that time when I was traveling a little bit, I was shooting a lot of weddings, there was still this kind of overbearing wedding industry needs to do it like that, and this is what's popular now, and so man, it just took time, and you have to stick to your guns, as difficult as that is sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But it's way more fruitful than kind of just. Imagine like shooting 70 weddings a year doing the same thing, like 2 weeks, twice every weekend.
Yeah, nightmare.
Over and over and over again. Like I think it would drive me mad. I think I would go insane if I had to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to speak directly to our listeners right now, and I really do want to hear your thoughts on if you do this. If you go to a wedding with a shot list or things to do, like I know flat lays are really popular and stuff, but or even filmmakers who film things. I get it. We used to do that as well, but we kind of went on a similar journey to Ian here, where we just realized that these things weren't important to us, and then suddenly you're taking things out because they're not making people feel anything. A shot of a ring isn't going to make an emotion come out of a person looking at it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're right, I don't know. But unless it's like a special ring or something. But like, imagine replacing that time that you give in your film to someone laughing. And then imagine like in like 10 years' time, that person dies. Because I'm sad and morbid and dark. Like, you suddenly, that moment has just become an even more grander moment in the eyes of this film. And I just think, well, things are never going to die. they've still got they'll still have the things. Do you know what I mean? I'm rambling here. I'm sorry, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, I get it. And I wonder, people are like, £600 for a wedding? That's not a lot of money. We know a lot of us did our first weddings for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, to be fair, I got 600 for that one. The next few that I shot were probably half that.
Oh, no! You don't go backwards, Ian.
Come backwards. I was like, £600, I'm going to be rich.
I mean, you do. I don't know if you're the same, Ian, but you do. You're like, oh, £600. This is great, because probably you're not thinking about your business. You're not thinking about the overheads and shit like that. You're like, oh, fuck, I've just made £600. I'm going to buy some vinyls here or something.
And that's a different. I mean, if you look at like £600 to go and wander around for 6 or 7 hours and photograph a wedding, then it seems like a lot of money. But even not so, after 15 years of shooting and honing what it is that you do and constantly evolving and becoming better at what you do, then people they're not paying for your time. I don't see, like, people are not paying for my time anymore. Yeah. You know, they're not paying for my business. They're paying for the photographs. They're paying for the art at the end of it. That's what they're paying for. Mm-hmm. And really, they're not paying enough, to be fair. And nobody's charging enough. That's the way that I see it. In comparison to what people are spending on other aspects of the wedding, you know, then they're not paying enough for what it is that they receive afterwards. I think that anybody who is shooting weddings really needs to constantly look at what they're charging and what the work that they produce is worth. Not the time that they're there at the wedding, it's the work that they're giving over to the client. What's that actually worth, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I was just going to mention that because sometimes I go on TikTok, I'm ashamed to say, and there's this video where it's like a photography session is more or less free, because by the time you spend you spent a couple of hours there and you've spent however much money, the lifetime value that you get from hanging up a photograph and you see it every day, and it becomes part of your life and your story. Like, I can see the point of that. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Greg.
That's all right. I was just like, you've obviously mentioned a whole host of photographers already and artists and stuff that have inspired you in the early days and even still just now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Where else do you get your influences from for sort of what influences how you see the world?
I think that the inspiration comes from the work itself. I heard, there was like years and years ago, I heard an interview with Nick Cave.
Nick Cage? Nick Cage?
Nick Cave.
Oh,
Cave. Nicholas Cage.
Where the fuck is this going? Sorry. Yeah, okay. The
Nick
musician.
Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the greatest artists of our time. One of the greatest artists of any time, to be fair. And he was asked what he listened to. And I'm going back maybe like 10, 15 years here. And he said, nothing really. Maybe a little bit of Elvis, some Johnny Cash. I was like, what do you mean he's not listening to all of this stuff to get inspiration? And I understand that now.
Yeah.
Because he just goes and does the work. And it comes from him. And it comes from, he's not really pulled around by anything else other than what he creates and how he does it. So as far as visually photographers are concerned, I mean, there are a few that I like. There are a few that I still look at. There are, like, I always find Gary Winogrand like endlessly fascinating, and the difficult pictures to kind of work out. And obviously Martin's work is always visually striking, and it has an element to it. It's that kind of dry sense of humor that I really like.
Yep.
And but it's mostly the kind of the classics, really. That if I ever do sit down and look at photography books, which there are plenty of, it would be people like Tony Ray Jones. And I mean, I like other types of photography. So I like all types of photography, and I like how an artist can apply himself to that genre, like Ezra Stoller with his architectural photography. And, it's like, and things that interested. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, who photographs Formula One with a big plate camera.
Wow.
Kind of thing. And I'm always interested in people using the wrong tool for the job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, photography itself, like visually, I'm still interested in the ideas of artists, but that comes from all types of art, paintings and music included. Yeah, man, it's always really been about the idea for me, and we have a process, and for me, my own work in particular, it's the picture at the end isn't really the goal, That's just the consequence of my study and practice and how I work. And that's what comes out the other end. And when it comes out the other end and I can go, yeah, I like that one. That's a good one. Yeah. Based on my understanding of what a good photograph is, then that's all I really need to progress. But it's always interesting seeing, I mean, I really like Sarah Moon as a photographer. Again, older photographer, old-fashioned photographer. And the way that she used to just spend time with the subjects and use slow shutter speeds and different processes and really create these kind of ethereal, like otherworldly images, And like anything like that stands out, I do like. But yeah, I don't really look at photography much these days. I just go and do it.
All right. For those out there who are maybe struggling with unlearning or unseeing wedding photography, is there like a place you'd recommend them going or doing, or
I mean, the problem is there's just so much out there. And we have all of this noise, and we need to find a kind of direction like through it, and it's even hard. I think that's probably why I've stopped looking as well, because it's just so hard to find anything of any worth without people trying to sell some kind of secret or present really shallow work in a way that they think it's the best thing that's ever been made. And it's really difficult. Do you know what, man? All I can suggest is start with photography history. Look at photographers who started off in certain genres of photography, why and how that style of photography developed, and for me it was always like documentary work, and anybody who was being more like using photography, for want of a better phrase, as an art form. So the pictures weren't just pictures, they were something else as well. And if we look at the Bauhaus and how they integrated photography into their work, and like people like Man Ray and all of these kind of, I don't know, artist photographers, then I'm always interested by something that looks different or new, or no matter how old that is, if it's new to me.
Totally.
They're actually kind of, they have a process, they have an idea, and I keep coming back to this. It's like they have an idea, and the work just comes from that idea, rather than looking at a photograph and go, I want to photograph things like that, and then spending your time. We all, when we start, imitate. But what we need to find our own feet and stop imitating. And
I mean, who out there doesn't look at an image and then kind of like reverse it to try and break down all the elements that you need to create a similar image? I do it all the time. I'm terrible for that.
I mean, we start like that, like I think everybody does, like in all forms of art. It's just like, oh, I like that, or you have a guitar and you want to learn to play some songs that you like, but
that's it.
You have to take on the responsibility for yourself, man, and
I can do it.
Get out there. And do you know what? Even wedding photographers who are running a business and who are like, wedding photographers earn some good money, man, filming like wedding video guys, video people.
And freaks of nature, that's what I like to be called.
What, sorry?
A freak of nature, that's what I like to be called.
But they have to earn money, and even the photographers who are doing the same thing week in, week out, there is plenty of time at a wedding to go and explore and mess around and do what you want. And you don't have to show the client those pictures if they don't turn out well. But once you've done what your responsibility to what it is that you have to do, go and run around and mess around with the camera and kind of, we kind of learn more by messing around than we ever do by following technical exercises. And, you might just find something that, oh, that's a good picture. I like that. And then you can do it more and you can practice more at the next wedding,
Yeah.
But,
talking about clients paying and stuff, I do want to ask about your pricing.
Yeah.
And especially since you don't consider yourself a wedding photographer, like how do you package your pricing and like all that kind of stuff? Like what would you offer when you go to a wedding? Like that kind of stuff.
So I have a day rate, and that's for whenever they want me there in the morning up until I feel I've got everything, which could be anything from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I've like shot 18-hour weddings before because it's been a hoot,
Yeah.
And when you're in Reggio Emilia in Italy and everybody's dancing and drinking Aperol spritzers till 5-6 in the morning and having a party, you don't really want to leave. Just get involved. Like I tell all my clients that I'm there to be a guest.
Yeah.
Sort of, but a guest who's watching everybody and taking pictures of them.
Yeah.
In the non-weirdest kind of way. So, and as far as what I deliver to them the best of what I get from that day. And they get the full high-res files. Sometimes it's 300 pictures, sometimes it's 600 pictures. I just don't know. It's weird that the weddings that I feel that not much has happened and it's not very exciting, I tend to get more pictures from because I'm hunting and I'm looking and I'm trying to find the pictures and I'm making more pictures and in making more pictures. Like this, I tell people, it's like the only reason I've got more good pictures than you is because I've got more bad pictures than you.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
So it's like there are there's a lot of trash in there while I'm trying to figure things out. Yeah. But so like, who knows? Like, and that's what I tell people. I mean, you're paying me to be there for the day. You're paying me to give you a representation of the day from my perspective, and you will get the best of what I get from the day. Yeah. And that's what I offer, and that's it.
Yeah.
If people want albums after that, I'm not a book salesman, But what we do with a couple who do, I find that a lot of people that I shoot for are kind of artists, designers, photographers, like all of that. So they can quite easily put all of their own books together and they know. But people who don't have that, then each book is designed bespoke for the couple. Yeah. And I don't do fancy wedding albums with fluffy covers and fucking diamonds all over it and stuff. It's actually a photo book. So if you went to buy a photo book of a photographer, that's what the book will be like. So it's not an album, it's a proper photo book. But we work out who we're going to use to produce the book and how it'll all be put together with the client. And so each one is as unique to them as the photographs are for their wedding.
Yeah. I get that. How much do a couple need to pay you to get you to their wedding? Like what's the starting price? or are you flexi? Like, which is
it's a sliding scale.
Yeah,
it's a sliding scale, and that depends on how far away the wedding is from me. Obviously, if I'm in San Francisco, it's going to cost a lot more. It also depends on the client themselves. If I think it's a really great wedding that I want to go and photograph, I think they're great, but they can't stump up the full day rate, then we can work out travel and accommodation and maybe include that, and then also maybe reduce the rate a little bit, And I don't really have a season, so I don't have an off-season price or like day price, but it's enough.
Yeah.
You're so UK. Us UK people don't like talking about prices.
Talking about that though, like we all have to make a living.
Well, you know what? I don't want to say because if anybody hears it who has paid in the back, like, hang on a minute.
Fair enough.
But I have an idea. I mean, to be fair, like that rate is based is kind of based on what it costs commercially per day.
Yeah.
You know, so I just see that as me shooting. It's kind of shooting another job. And if I wasn't shooting that, then I might have another job, and that's what I would get paid a day. So, and I think really for me to do the job and to deliver the pictures that I do, then it's a pretty fair price. That's the way.
Yeah. Like on that point, like you do other commercial projects, you do your own personal projects. Do you start a new year, like in January, do you go, I'd like to do X amount of weddings? Like I know a lot of wedding photographers go, my minimum is I need 35 to survive type thing, or they have a number they aim for. Do you have that, or do you just go into the new year thinking, I'll do any project? Yeah,
absolutely. It's kind of like I don't have any idea from day to day, never mind year to year. And things can change so quickly as far as what's coming in and what isn't coming in. And I found that if I have an expectation of what I want, then that expectation is quite often not met. And so it's best to not have any expectations, go with the flow, continue to do what I'm doing, and we just see what comes. I mean, I have maybe 3 weddings booked in for next year.
Yeah.
But I've only shot about 7 this year. I only, even at my busiest year, I've shot like 15 weddings. You know?
A healthy, sane number.
And yes, for a normal human being.
Yes, indeed. I don't know how anyone could do more than 30 and be happy. No. I genuinely don't. Like, I suppose that's coming from someone who does video. So it takes longer for us to edit. So since you were talking about your commercial work, how much do you charge? No, I'm just kidding. Do you have a similar kind of approach when you do your commercial work, or is there a lot more you need to do this because we're paying you to do this? Like how much back and forth do you have with your commercial
that
work?
also, obviously when you're shooting commercial work, you still have to have the client in mind. And I've always shot some bits of commercial work, but nothing too much. And I don't, although I have done a couple of larger campaigns, I don't really like that because I hate advertising. But we have to keep a roof over our heads, and we have to pay the bill. So if an offer comes along that you can't refuse, it's difficult to try and hang your morals on that kind of thing and like not shoot it. You know, it's like, okay, well, I can not shoot it, and this is going to be an issue, or I can shoot it and everything's going to be fine for another 6 months. You know, taking that into account, I'm open to that. But the commercial work that I do shoot, mostly it comes from the same mindset of like, we want you to do what you do for us. But once you start getting art directors involved and agencies, and like, it can become a little bit tricky as far as them saying, so what it is we're actually going to get. It's like, I don't know until I get it, kind of thing. But I mean, obviously you have like your Digitex assistants, all of that kind of stuff, and whatever you need on the day, and they can help go through pictures, and they can sit with the client and make sure the client's happy and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you do have to have them in mind. But again, if they're coming to me saying we want you to do what you do for us, then that takes the pressure off somewhat. But it's harder to get commercial work in that way because like I'm not putting a deck together. I'm not putting like this idea together of kind of, they have to come to me with the idea, and I have to then kind of shoot into that idea. Does that make sense?
Definitely, But you just said there that you hate advertising, so people will be wondering like, what do you do to market your wedding work and get new clients, and where are your clients finding you?
Well, I get a lot of press. So if anybody's looking for a wedding photographer that isn't a wedding photographer, or somebody that stands out, man, I'm always added to some like arbitrary list of best photographers, or like kind of, I mean, and especially after 2019, we hit like every major publication worldwide. It was insane.
Yeah.
We had when we got all the stats back of all the readership and the exposure, there was like billions of views on the work, and we kind of expected the phone to be ringing off the hook, and it just didn't. But hey, you don't know. But it's always been word of mouth and people finding me through, I don't know, like features and podcasts and articles and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all more organic stuff.
I've never
that's
actually
happening.
advertised. I've never actually done any advertising at all.
Okay. So no TikTok dancing or.
What is TikTok?
Are you joking? No.
No. Yes. No.
Yes. You are.
Yes and no.
Yeah. TikTok's a funny one because it's such a new tool. Anyway, I don't want to talk about TikTok. I'm TikToked out, for God's sake.
I can't like Instagram and Facebook. I mean, Instagram is a bit of a necessary evil because I feel that that's where people are going to look for things. So, but I'm not posting anything to Instagram that's sort of like, hey, look at me, advertising kind of thing. It's more just a representation of what I'm shooting now and what I'm working on and some work that I like. And I'm not doing it for likes. I don't really, because I'm not getting that many, because I don't interact all the time. I'm not on. I schedule my posts and then go out. So if anybody wants to go and look at the kind of stuff that I do or what I'm working on, that's where they'll see it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's all I use it for.
Hey, I'm Ashley from With Jack. I'm one of the sponsors of the Perspective podcast. With Jack helps to keep photographers in business by supporting them financially and legally if they have problems with a client or they make a mistake in their work. We've all had that fear of our CF card or our hard drive failing and losing important photos. You can find out more at withjack.co.uk. Head over there and find out how we can help you be a confident creative.
Well, I do want to talk about your website because I've got a couple of comments, and I don't know if it's just me, right? But so for people that don't know, it's ianweldon.com, right? And it's got what I would describe as like a splash screen. It's probably not actually a splash screen, but it's like this kind of invitation. It says Ian Weldon is not a wedding photographer. However, he is a photographer who photographs weddings, albeit not in the typical way. And you scroll up, and it opens this wedding invitation, and you get to the meat of the website, and you see all your images and stuff. And I thought that was a pretty cool opening to a website. And then I scrolled down, and then I'm greeted with all these twirly fonts and things moving, and then I'm like, oh goodness gracious me, this is like a almost a traditional wedding website circa like 2000s, and I'm like, is this it? I don't know if this is it satirical? That's the one. Like, I really enjoy it. Things flow really nicely, but it's like, you're not a wedding photographer, but this is like a wedding invitation at the start, and then you open it up, and it's like, do you know what I mean?
Are you having a joke with us all?
Are you having a joke? Like, because I really like it.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Okay.
So the guy who designed it, Reed Parsekian, and he's out in New York, and he did my previous website. And when we put the previous website together, that was pre-pandemic, and at the time, weddings, commercial work, personal projects, all of that stuff all had equal space on the website. And then things kind of changed over those 2 years that I already talked about. And when I was thinking about how the website should be, I started talking to Reed, and I was like, do you know, like, it's not a wedding photographer. We should have these pictures and have them juxtaposed against this really old school traditional wedding kind of feel and the way that it all flows. And I want it all to flow, and I want people to be able to kind of, it looks weddingy, but once you start looking at the pictures, it's still my pictures.
Yeah.
You know? So it's that juxtaposition. And what I also wanted to do was push the commercial work and the personal projects into the background a little bit and let the weddings come through. So that the idea was to have it like as it is, and an invitation, and you open it up, it's like, oh, this is a nice wedding. Wait a minute, what's this? Like,
Yeah.
Kind of.
So you said, oh shoot, I've forgotten the guy's first name. Sorry, Reed Parsekian.
Yes.
I didn't know who this was. Google him quickly, and I've got to parsekian.design, and it seems to be almost like a breakdown of your website.
All right.
I don't know. It's got his name, all your wedding photographs.
Oh, is that the tab on the side of the website that you clicked?
No, I googled it. I mean,
right,
tab
okay.
on the side of your website, the contact page, the about.
There should be a what is it called? There's like a website design
honors.
Yeah, something like that.
It takes me to a blank page. Oh, hang on, maybe it's loading. I don't know. Anyway, for those of you that are interested, parsekian.design seems to be a breakdown of your website with videos and behind the veil.
Yeah.
Some of the assets, and
he's definitely, from what you described there, he's definitely nailed the brief, because that's when you look at the website, it's exactly as you described there.
Yeah. But it's so good. In fact, Greg, I mean, are you getting early days AM wedding films? Like when we started off, it was this on our webpage.
Font choices,
no joke. Same font. Like the black and white.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But the way he designed it, he's designed it that the flourishes wrap around the images and highlight certain parts of the photographs. And,
Yeah. It's so funny because you do see a lot of like flow themed designs and Squarespace. We're on Squarespace, you know.
It all looks the same, man.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
We're all the same. We should do better. But this, I mean, I don't know. I love interacting with new things online. So when I come across a website where things are like not normal, but just the fact that I just felt like it was such a, like, and that's why I asked you about those, you know, your images earlier. Like, is there a commentary with them? Like, I feel like there's a commentary with this website. And as you can probably hear in my voice, I'm very excited about people having commentary about it.
Let's continue that excitement and move into show and tell. Let's
talk
about some specific images.
Oh dear.
Simon's chose some images.
So I've chosen some images, Ian, and the idea
Hopefully
is
I can explain them in some way.
So first of all, you can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically, I'm going to show you 3 or 4 images. Is there 3 or 4? Have I gone over?
I think there's 4.
Oh, good. Sometimes it's 5 because I can't control myself, but I've been good this time. So 4 images of yours, and we can have a conversation about them. I really want to know your mindset behind them.
Yeah.
This photograph made me think, and obviously I've alluded to, you know, we've talked about what makes a bad image, and, you know, having had conversations with other photographers who are pushing out the boundaries. Like, if a traditional wedding photographer looks at this, they might think to themselves, well, that's just a bad photograph. But I'm not one of those people. I really like this image.
Me too. That's why it's on my website.
So I go all over the place. I can't remember where I pick out images from. So this is on your website, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like this image, and I really like the fact that she is so not happy with you being where you are.
Yeah.
And taking her image. I mean, but the funny thing is, you're not taking her image.
I'm not taking her picture, no.
That's why I like it so much.
And
it's almost like the joke's on her.
But it's just in that second how she looks.
Yeah.
It's all propaganda, man. It's all propaganda.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, that's not exactly how she was and how she looked. She just happened to be looking in the camera And there's a couple more that didn't quite work out as far as my positioning was concerned.
Yeah.
About the positioning of the rest of the elements, as far as the legs and the knees that run diagonally.
Yeah.
Where you've got the two figures in the background that bring your eye to the back of the photograph. Yeah. So it's all of the elements and how they fit together. And this is as I was talking about earlier about having an image that is more like kind of abstract expression, more geometrical kind of graphic, and how your eye rolls around the picture. Yeah. And it's as if she's out of focus, kind of like the intention really is that she's in the way kind of thing. So she is out, and you have to look around her to get all of the other elements of the photograph and what's going on. Yeah.
Well, the thing I liked about it is like, if you're looking at the people in the background, not the gentleman who's in focus with the yellow tie, but the people in the background, they're actually clapping and looking at something. So something's happening.
Yeah.
So the idea that you just said that she's in the way, she's probably thinking you're in the way.
Yeah.
And I quite like that kind of. I mean, maybe she's not thinking this, but in my head, there's like a non-verbal dialogue that you guys are both having, and the joke's kind of on her. And I really maybe I'm just like looking too much into images. I don't know. Not at all.
Well, this is the whole point, that they're all open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not making pictures that are on the nose. You know, I'm making pictures that people can have a conversation about. They can look at it and they can discuss why they think it's good and why they think it's bad.
Yeah.
And really, for me, like, that's, once it goes out there, people can have whatever idea they want about it, you know? Like,
so the question I have to ask is, the other images that you said were taken in this moment, but maybe either side, that didn't quite work out. Like, were they, would you consider them bad images? Or just
possibly not, just not as good as that one. That was the money shot. That's the one.
Yeah.
You know, if I have two or three that are similar, like, not that the other two were bad, it's just that, like, that one, because of the way the elements are in the frame, that made it a much more pleasing photograph to look at.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, it also has to be a good photograph.
Yeah. So what? Again, this is a hard one. What is a good photograph?
Well, there you go. You tell me.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But yeah, so I really.
I suppose the fact that we're now discussing this photograph and what you think about that photograph, and what you think she's up to, and what the other people are doing, that makes it a good photograph. You haven't just looked at it and gone, nice picture, nice picture. It's like, what's going on? Why?
Yeah.
What's he thinking? What are you doing?
Yeah,
kind of.
Makes you stop.
And to me, that makes a photograph worth something.
Yeah. I would even go maybe even a little bit further than that. And I think that is the difference. And maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like that's the difference between like an advert that's trying to sell you something and art.
Right.
Is that conversation? Because obviously, you know.
Yes.
What is it, like Andy Warhol, probably famous for his cans of soup and products, but there's a commentary behind that, and he started. I'm sure he didn't start a conversation. He started a conversation around commercialism and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. But next image, Greg. I hope it's. Oh yeah. So
I think there's a theme of people getting in the way, as they know.
Seems to be.
Seems to be. Yes. I look at this and I think, well, the framing is just wonderful with that fireplace in the background. Yeah. There's obviously intentionality in the framing and everything else. But yes, why did you take this image? And I suppose let's go more technical with this. Like, what can you even remember taking this image or the wedding?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I remember the wedding.
Okay. Can you tell us anything more about this image that you can recall?
This was it was very close quarters. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much room to move around. Mm-hmm. So a photograph can be made anywhere in any situation. You don't have to be in the place that you think that you need to be, or have the gear that you think you need to make the photograph.
Yeah.
So this was, from what I can remember, that was kind of, there was like a desk behind. This is the mother of the bride who's doing this speech here. And there was a desk behind her, and there was 2 chairs behind that. Now I stood in between the 2 chairs. Now I had to climb over the chair or step over the chair to get out and to get round the side so I could get a different picture. And I thought, like, while I'm here, why don't I just, the hat's cool. There, I can see their eyes on both sides.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, I'll just hang around here a couple of seconds and see. And again, there's probably 2 or 3 different versions of this.
Yeah.
And that's the one that works. That's the one that's the photograph, because like it's you can raise a question. It has elements in there that are normally what would be seen at a wedding, but not seen in this particular way.
Yeah, it definitely is like a voyeuristic feel to it, where like you feel like you're stuck behind there just trying to watch this ceremony go on or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to look around it.
Again,
Which I feel like is maybe how wedding guests normally have to be. Like if you go into a wedding and you've not been in the family, you're just kind of friends and you're kind of hanging around the back. You want to get engaged because it's your pal, but you're like, fucking Auntie Margaret, move out the bloody way. Why is everyone wearing fucking big hats? Like,
well, that's not how that scene would normally be depicted.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So and you can make a picture anywhere. Everything can be a photograph. You're never in the wrong place. And this is why I always have, well, not issues, but I always get a little bit like, get over yourself when wedding photographers complain about people getting in the way with their own phone cameras. It's like, well, if you're in the same place as Uncle Bob, you're in the wrong place, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
I mean, there are many conversations that happen where, especially online, when they post a picture and be like, "Oh, look at everyone on their iPhone. They're down the aisle."
That's just indicative of today. That's
I know.
how it is.
Like, I feel kind of bad for all those people, because who hasn't been somewhere and taken out their phone to document something?
Yeah.
Like, and now you're commenting on all these people doing it at probably a very important part of their family's journey, and I'm like, who the fuck are you to be moaning about people and like with their iPhones out down the aisle?
Yeah,
go and stand somewhere else.
Yeah, go stand somewhere else, or even put a spin on the message there. Like I just said, this is a nice moment, and they're wanting to capture it. That's maybe there's a nice message in there.
Yeah,
this is the same wedding.
Oh, shut up! Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Wait, is this her here? No, she doesn't have a hat on.
No.
Okay. Well, I can. Bloody hell! How did they walk down the aisle? There's no aisle. Bloody hell! Right, is it this side?
Yeah. They climbed over all the guests together.
Crowd surf.
Well, hang on. Before we start talking about this image, I do want to ask. Like, obviously, when I said that, I love the conversations behind an image. When you go to cull images and stuff, like there's not a conversation there that exists yet. So from your point of view, is it just like, are you having a conversation in your head, or is it just the visual aspects that you're connecting with? Like you mentioned the eyes. Like you liked seeing the eyes on either side of the mum's head, or yeah. So it's just the visual aspects that you like.
I think to start with, I probably start with, a good long wedding day, you're probably talking close to 2,000 images.
Yeah.
And all I do is I kind of edit in. So I'll start at the beginning and I'll just go click, no, yes. And that's only from what catches my eye to start with.
Yeah, okay.
And then when I go back and I select all of the picked images, then I can start removing them by unselecting them. So I'll go through and go, yes, hang on, those two are quite the same. And I'll bring them up and look at them and have a little bit of a mess around and go, yep, get rid of that one. That's the one. And it isn't until maybe this third pass that I start to form a story and a kind of narrative to the actual day and getting onto the characters and how the wedding flows, and kind of that image should be before that one really, and you know, and that's the process I go through. But that process can take me, like I usually say, 8 weeks. It doesn't take me 8 weeks to do it, but I don't really start looking at them for a month,
right?
Because I want to distance myself from the wedding and look at it from like more of an objective view, like as a photographer, rather than the guy who was there, rather than going, oh, he was cool, that's a nice picture of him, and in the whole scheme of things it might not work within how the series flows and how the sequencing is, you know. That
is really interesting that you said that you like to give yourself space, because we were talking to Ed Godin, which very funny story actually, fucking now that I've mentioned him. Hi Ed. So you're probably not going to remember this, but you were shooting a marathon at one point. Was it in London?
I think it was London, maybe.
And you might recall this crazy photographer guy running up to you and being like, Ian, and having a little bit of a fanboy moment. Well, this was another wedding photographer called Ian Godin. We've worked with him before. Sorry, Ed. I said Ian, didn't I? Ed Godin. We've worked with him a few times, but he just had him on his podcast, and we mentioned that we were going to be speaking to you at the end of the week, and he got very excited and told us the story. Yeah. And I just thought, I'm going to tell Ian that this happened to him, and he's probably not going to remember. He's like, yeah, he's probably not going to know. Do you remember?
No.
Sorry, Ed. You're right.
When did this happen?
It was a good few years ago, I think. He said that it turned out you were doing like you were shooting the marathon for a clothing company or something. He found out later on.
Yeah.
So he was in the marathon as well. Ran by and was like, "I recognize you," and that was it. He was gone. He was gone after that.
Yeah.
All right. Right. Maybe. All right. Okay.
But that crazy guy, he says hello. So,
all right. Hello, Ed.
Yeah. Did I have a question? Or did I? Why did I bring him up? I can't remember. Oh,
because I said I give the pictures space.
Yes. So he was talking about how he likes to, like, he can't sleep at the end of a wedding, and so he just dives straight in there because if he gives himself space, he feels like he'll forget big moments.
Right. Okay.
But it's interesting that you said you were the complete opposite. So why do you almost want to forget the wedding to come back?
Yeah, I mean, again, so I can look at it as a photographer, as I kind of distance myself from the pictures. I can be more, I suppose, judgmental over them. I can look at them as potential photographs rather than moments that are kind of connected, supposedly, I don't know, connected to a bit more on a personal level. I really want to take and I just need to give it space, man. Like, as I said, it's like I may be swayed by somebody's personality on whether that's a good picture or not. And I don't want my kind of connection to somebody to add a picture that might not work within the whole set. It's like, all right, well, I had a great conversation with this couple, they were racing, I've got a picture of them, and yeah, that's cool, I'll put that one in. It's like, no, I don't want to look at it like that. I want to look at the picture and go, is that a good picture or not? You know?
Right, I get that.
And it's better for me. I mean, hey, some people jump right in, some people don't jump right in, you know?
We've each got our own little ways of working, I suppose. Yeah. We have. Because I think probably the assumption would be that a lot of wedding photographers, maybe not video because it takes so long to like put stuff onto your computer and all the hard drives, that they do want to feel those connections. Yeah. You know, but yeah, I get it. Right, so this image here, again, it's people's eyes are closed, like they're not looking at you, but you're right in front of them. I mean, I know she's not trying to look around you, but because we were just talking about how it kind of felt like that with the person doing the reading, I just thought that's really funny. What made you take this image, or was it just a case of like you simply just turned around, you had your 35, snap?
Well, I didn't see the guy yawning right in the middle, when I made the picture.
Yeah.
You know, but it's so making that picture is a picture that any wedding photographer or anybody shooting a wedding would take. It's a picture of the wedding guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the one that stood out again out of maybe 2 or 3 that I made after kind of shuffling around and getting into a position, and that was the better picture for all the reasons that you've said.
Yeah. Okay.
And then because it's not the one that a wedding photographer would choose,
Yeah.
but it's the one a photographer would choose based on photography itself rather than what is expected as wedding photography.
Yeah.
You know, I like the balance of it. The center point is the guy in the middle yawning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So this kind of touches on those made up imaginary boundaries that I put on myself. So one of them was smoking. Another one is like people yawning and looking bored.
Yeah.
But
People are bored at weddings. The amount of people
Well,
just bored out of the brains. Yeah.
that's a real funny thing because I've been a guest at a wedding, and there was one time where I wasn't no one was giving canapes, and we were fucking starving. Like, everyone was starving, and we had to run to the local spa and get some chocolates and stuff just to make it through. And I did think, this is an interesting part of the day that only we're gonna remember.
Yeah.
The couple aren't gonna know this, but it would have been really funny just to take some photographs.
Yeah.
Of us doing this, and I thought, oh, this is kind of that kind of same vibe. Like,
It adds to the story. Like,
Yeah.
you're looking at that, and as somebody who's not at the wedding, you look and go, maybe the bride or whoever it was late, and that's why they're sitting there sort of getting a bit bored and yawning. So you're putting your own story on it, and might be completely wrong, but
I mean, I'm gonna guess this is the signing. But is it the signing? Do you guys sign in?
I can't remember. I don't know.
Can't remember. Because
But the thing is, this is like all the things that you're talking about are the reasons why I make these photographs. And as far as the images that I supply, each one stands on its own as a photograph.
yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be part of a set of images of the day. And that's what I'm looking for as well in the photo. Does this stand alone as a good photograph?
Yeah.
yeah. Another aspect. That was the last one, wasn't it?
No, I think there's 2 more. That's only been. Oh no.
Have I got? Did I? Oh, you're right. Yes. There's a theme. So people who have been watching these YouTube videos, there's a theme to the images that I like to put on, and there's always someone on a ground, on a bride's dress, on a lawn, lying face down, sometimes holding a beer, sometimes not. What she's
Giving a peace sign.
she's giving you the fingers.
Yeah.
So what's the
Is it okay?
what's the story here, if you can remember?
So this wedding was in Durham Castle, next to the cathedral, and this is the So what they do is they hire the castle out for weddings when students aren't there, and all the guests stay in the student accommodation. That's
Right.
Oh, right, yeah.
So this is about 4 or 5 floors up, and she couldn't remember where a room was, and her husband had gone to the room and took the key with him.
Okay.
Hey man, this was about 4 o'clock in the morning. This.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I was
This
going to say,
after-
I didn't notice that she didn't have her shoes on or anything. She's completely barefoot. Obviously, when it's on Instagram or whatever on your website, it's hard to see all the elements, but sometimes I see new things. I didn't see the fingers, and I didn't see the missing shoe.
Right.
So that's
Oh, there you
hilarious.
go. And they're the bits that make it a good photograph. It's not just somebody lying on the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
So
So we got up to the top of the 4 or 5 flights of stairs, and she fell over at the top. That was it.
yeah.
And I was like, "Are you okay?" And the fingers went up, and I took the snap.
So is this just a random guest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
made you go with her to the 4th floor? Like, why were you so far
All right,
away
because
from
we were
the action?
we were partying in the bride and groom suite. We were in there
Right.
fucking around,
So you
and
were
her
just-
husband had gone, and she went, "I don't know which way it is." I went, "Well, I know which way it is. I'll take you up there and bring on the door to wake him up for you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how many weddings do you? Because we've spoken to so many photographers, and the majority of them would be like, nah, things get messy. I just want to be out of there. I want to go home, be with my kids, whatever. Like, how many weddings do you end up like 4:00 in the morning partying with the bride and groom? Like,
almost all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But the thing is, like, I mean, if it's a wedding that's really close to home, I mean, but it was good crack. It was good laugh. And if I'm always included in the wedding, but when it becomes like you just are treated like a wedding guest and everybody's like, hey, and everybody's cool, then I tend to stay longer. But a lot of weddings that I shoot are Europe and America and all that kind of stuff. So you're there anyway. It's like, you know, and most of the time you're staying at the reception venue. And so you can just like, so I just get on. I mean, as soon as somebody offers me a glass of champagne, I'm like, yep, we're on.
Yeah. Fair play, man.
But some I can be out of there at 10 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, yeah, same 6 people dancing. Like, there's no point in me taking these pictures over and over again.
Yeah. We had that situation the last wedding where it became clear that
nothing was going to change.
A handful of people were dancing, and nothing was going to change. And I was over to the DJ being like, can you like put on a banger? And he was like, oh yeah, I'll put on a banger. The groom's asked for Toto Africa, and I'm like, that's a song. I would not call it a banger.
It's a good song.
That is not going to get everyone dancing, but hey, yeah.
I know when I'm done. Like,
yeah.
There's no point. Yeah, there's no point. I just end up with more pictures that I have to look through to find. Like,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, awesome. Thank you for filling us in with those images. I mean, there was tons more. Yeah. A guy smoking, holding a bouquet, which is why I was thinking about, you know, how I don't shoot people smoking, but I really like that image. Yeah, all sorts. So if you haven't checked out Ian's work, definitely go to his website, go to his Instagram, have a look. Challenge yourself.
Looking forward at the next year ahead, have you got any projects that you're excited about? Like, you've hit a peak in 2019 with the exhibition. Like, is there anything else?
Fell off from there.
That's it.
Is there anything that's getting you excited about the year ahead?
I mean, we are, because I live up here in the north of England, and all of the things that seem to happen are always southern England as far as photography conferences and all of that stuff's concerned. We are talking at the moment about putting something on at the end of March in Newcastle, and we're going to call it Northern Exposure, and we are going to highlight a couple of northern photographers. We also have a couple of other people on board, like bigger names within the wedding industry, and I've spoken at and been to so many wedding photography conferences that I know exactly what I don't want from it.
Right.
And this is more of an exploration of photography and people's stories about their connection to photography, rather than high-fiving and hugging everybody and getting all pumped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for want of a better phrase, it's a more mature photography conference that is about photography, specifically aimed at wedding photographers.
Okay. What are those big names, or is it all hush-hush at the moment?
Well, it's all hush-hush at the minute because we're just talking. But I have a couple of good friends, Monica and Paul, the Richters.
Oh, right, okay.
Who might be interested, and a couple of other northern photographers. So we want to at least highlight some northern wedding photographers and put something on up here, so people are not traveling all the way to London, like every however many months to go to these conferences, or traveling to Europe.
Yeah.
I am presenting a BODAF this year as well.
Right.
Out in Barcelona. so I need to tighten up the presentation for that. But as far as other projects are concerned, like I'm getting into a bit of video, man. I shot some video during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just waiting for some gear to come because if I'm not doing photography stuff, I'm messing around with motorbikes.
Okay.
That's pretty much how it is.
Fair enough.
So there's ideas for a couple of little documentary film projects that I'm considering embarking on this year, and just work, man. Anything. As far as weddings are concerned, like who knows, man. Like if they keep coming in, I'll keep shooting them. If they don't, then I don't really like. I'm 50 years old now, man. Like how long can I keep running around shooting weddings and like I need an exit plan, I think.
Oh, the famous exit plan.
Yeah.
Maybe time. But who knows? Yeah, I mean, but as far as any photography stuff, I don't really. There's some stuff that I want to reconnect with from pre-pandemic projects that I was working on that sort of went dead because obviously we couldn't shoot them. We couldn't get out and do them. But I don't know. Hey, just keep on keeping on, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. One final question for those really starting out doing weddings. For those kind of struggling to deviate from the norm because of fear of like, I don't know how others view them or even will this catch on? Will it be successful? Can I make a living doing this? Like, do you have any advice for those type of people to kickstart their career or creative stuff?
Yeah, just keep doing the work, man. Like there's like no piece of photography equipment is going to make up for a lazy attitude. And the thing that I tell all of my students and always have done is be interested in photography first and apply your understanding of what that is to the genre that you shoot.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned students. What students were you talking about?
Well, I used to lecture on photography history at Sunderland University. I also have delivered many short photography programs, and kind of it's more personal projects for photography. All right, there's another thing that we're hopefully starting another one in January, and it's called Personal Projects for Photographers, and it's aimed at wedding photographers. And it's more guidance on how to come up with your own project and how to approach the project and what you should be shooting, what you should be looking for, how to deal with difficult situations. And I believe that any wedding photographer who goes and shoots their own personal projects will learn more about what they're doing than just shooting weddings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we run that over 5 weeks. That are not always consecutive because I can get busy. And then we have a weekly group session and a weekly one-to-one for each student.
Cool.
So
where can people find out about these and Northern Exposure once they're announced? Like will there be websites?
They will either be on my website and do I just give me one moment? I will just check to see if the personal projects is available on the Out of Focus. The personal education. So the personal project information, we haven't got a date yet, but the information for that's on the Out of Focus podcast website.
Cool, brilliant,
very cool.
And
it's
finally,
just because of other commitments, I can't find a start date yet. But we're working towards that.
Yeah. Finally, is there any book recommendations for our listeners?
Oh man,
his book,
A New History of Photography.
A New History. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if they go back and listen, you've mentioned a couple other things earlier as well.
Yeah. I mean, books that I really like, books that get me. Richard Calvar's Earthlings is an excellent book. It has a certain amount of humor, but it's also excellent photography too.
Yeah.
There's also, if anybody can find a copy, I Am Not a Wedding Photographer by Ian Weldon.
I've heard that's pretty good.
I've heard that too. It's
That sold out pretty quick. and they're becoming quite rare. I mean, anything by, I don't know, Helen Levitt, Kudelka, like there's just like any. If you start looking at photography history, then photographers will start to become. You'll get interested in photographers, and have a look at the work and who influenced them, and like who was influenced by them, and kind of the work that they made and the impact that work had. You know, like man, there's not one thing that stands out. It's all just be interested in photography, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested in Ian's book, it does in fact have 2 reviews, 5-star 100% on Amazon,
really?
but there's no price and it's not available, so you're out of luck.
Are the reviews any good?
I mean, they're both 5 stars.
5-star, yeah.
5-star reviews.
Nice.
I've been wanting to buy this book for a while, and it didn't disappoint. Fabulous shots, a real laugh, and real laugh out moments. There you go.
Excellent.
There
I'll take that.
you go.
Yeah.
Which was
I think the last copies that I saw available were kicking around for about 150 to 200 quid.
Yeah.
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 Honestly, when we were speaking to John Dolan, we were looking at his book, and I didn't notice this at the time. This is why I've gone to the reviews here. But someone gave it a 1-star. I was like, terrible photographs, out of focus, bad composition. And I just thought, you've missed the fucking point of the whole fucking book, haven't you?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Jesus Christ,
Absolutely.
man. Anyway, Ian, thank you very much for joining us on what is just, I'm looking at my desk, 2 hours and 2 minutes. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
When you do know when things are happening, we'll post it. We'll mention it on the podcast so that our audience can check out, because obviously being Scotland, we're not that far away.
Yeah,
We're not
cool.
far
Yeah,
away.
well, Northern Exposure is not just the north of England; it's also Scotland as well. It's also Whereabouts are you guys?
We're Glasgow.
We're Glasgow.
All right, okay, cool.
Yeah. So
Nice.
maybe
Well,
maybe
if I'm ever up there, I'll give you a shout. We can have a beer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And
Cool.
maybe I'll hassle Greg to get me some tickets to your event, and I can come down. Or do you want some video? I'll do some video for you for a free ticket. Yay.
Excellent.
Ian, where can people find out more about you online?
Do you know, I hate saying this, but if you just Google Ian Weldon, man, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, do
It's
you
ridiculous.
know who he is?
Do you
Come
know
on,
who I am?
guys.
But ianweldon.com or Ian J. Weldon on Instagram.
Nice. And definitely go check out his website. It's a thing of beauty. Yeah. And people can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com, on Instagram and YouTube at Perspective by Cinemate. Hit that subscribe button. I will fucking love you forever. So yeah, plus algorithms and all that kind of crap. I know I'm saying it every time. You're getting bored of me talking to you about Perspective by Cinemate. I know, but thank you to With Jack for sponsoring this episode. If you don't have insurance as a freelancer or a creative wedding filmmaker or photographer, then it's something you kind of need to have. So contact Ashley. She's very good at what she does. And if you have liked this conversation, you can hit that subscribe on our YouTube. I've said the address before. And you can get us wherever you get your podcasts. However,
In the meantime,
enjoy your life.